know many people doesn't know about you. It's not for me, it's for everyone. A brief about you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. I would say that there's nothing great to know about me. I am just an Aam Aadmi or a mango people, as you would call it, just like anyone else. There's nothing remarkable about my life. Yeah, I've had certain achievements to my life, which I'm happy to have, and I've had certain good friends like you in my life. As you know, I'm Abhimanyu, and I'm a medical doctor by profession. I'm into administration for the last 15 years, but that's not the only hat I wear. Even though I'm a medical doctor, over the last 5-6 years, I'm sorry because I have a cold today. And because of a variety of factors, my life has been drawn in different directions. So I have been drawn to spirituality, and so though I practice as an administrator, I have a set of practices which focus on spirituality and yoga. So that is my second identity. My third identity is that I'm a family person, and I have a daughter, and my mom is also a doctor, and I have happy relationships in my life. I have a few genuine relationships that I care for, and I try to sustain. I also travel for my job, of course, but I love to travel, and I blog a bit, so I like writing. I have a love affair with the written word since my younger age, and I'm a bit into sports, like probably into medium distance running or swimming, etc. I read a bit, I listen to music a bit, and I like to meet people. But above everything, I think if you had to describe me in one word, I would say it's a spiritual person, because I believe that the spirit, the Atma, sustains all of us, and that is the core of our existence. And I think in my life journey, that has been the thing that has made all the difference, this rediscovery of my spiritual self.
You were a general medicine doctor, and suddenly you change your profession into healthcare management professional. How and why you thought to change your profession?
So that's an interesting question actually. See, back in 2001, I remember when I asked any medical practitioner, including an administrator, after MBBS, should I do MBA, should I do MHA? There only one thing to say, na, Pokono no. Doctor, clerk job, desk job, no way. So the overwhelming feeling in those days, and this is like 22 years back, was that a doctor should not leave his technical work to be an administrator. Things have changed today. I can see practicing doctors, practicing neurosurgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, high-profile doctors jumping into management. Some of them are practicing management along with clinical science. Some of them are abandoning clinical science and going into management. I won't go into the pros and cons. But for me, what the reason that I came into management was that I wanted to impact healthcare on a bigger scale. I was not happy sitting in a clinic and just looking at patients or working in a hospital. I remember one very famous healthcare entrepreneur, I think it might have been Dr. Devi Shetty, who said that when you are a doctor, you affect the life of one patient at one time. When you are a healthcare administrator, you affect the lives of multiple people at one time, because you tend to heal a system. And so I have attempted to follow the system. I have attempted to follow things on a bigger scale, and I think I've been fairly happy. As an ABH assessor, I have roamed across the country, been to multiple hospitals, met people at different levels, have at different levels of exposure. So I don't think I'm really unhappy with the fact that I chose to become an administrator. I won't say that I'm earning in tons. I would say what I'm earning barely gets me along, but that's not the reason for my happiness. My happiness is that I've got to meet so many people, and I've been able to bring about change in a number of systems, even if it's in a small way. So I think that is a reason, that is a primary motivation why from healthcare management, from a clinical doctor, I became a healthcare administrator, though I still see myself as a doctor, and probably someday I would like to take up some amount of clinical practice once.
You always wanted to be a doctor because your parents were doctor, or you have different career choices but destiny brings you in this profession, is it?
I think it's both ways. Of course, my mom's a doctor. My dad was an engineer and an administrator with Escorts Limited. He retired as general manager for Escorts Limited, the highest position in the eastern region. So my dad had an inclination towards making his son a doctor. My mom was slightly wary, given that she knew the realities of the profession. As for me, I think I had a 50-50 inclination towards being a doctor. Of course, the profession always had an attraction for me, as it still has now. I also knew a bit about the challenges. So I would say in some way, yes, I wanted to be a doctor, but then I was wary of the challenges. In hindsight, I entered medicine in 1995, and today it's 2023, so it's almost 28 years down the line. Would I say I have made a mistake? I wouldn't say, actually, because if I had gone into any other profession, I might or might not have been a success. My natural inclination in college was, of course, not toward biology or medical sciences. I was good at mathematics and English. So I had a right brain, classical right brain, left brain combination, which my daughter also has, actually. She does well in both mathematics and English. So my natural inclination, if you ask me, my natural profession would have been either something related to mathematics or to writing English. I do write, I have a blog, and I do help out my daughter with mathematics. But if you ask me whether I regret my decision to be a doctor, I don't think. It's still a lovely profession. It's commercialized, yes. Doctors are being attacked, yes. We were looked upon as demigods at one time. Commercialization has brought about a huge change, and now people look at doctors as providers. So if something goes wrong, go and hit him. I think that's not the way. We have to be a bit more sensitive, given that doctors make huge sacrifices in their personal lives. And I think society needs to re-evaluate and re-look at how they look at the medical profession. It is not about making tons of money. There are corrupt people in the profession, as in any other profession. There are corrupt judges and lawyers and engineers. We don't talk about them. Why it's only medical practitioners who are highlighted. So overall, it's a lovely profession, and if you have the right mindset and if you have the right skill set, I think it's good to be in the profession.
What kind of things inspire and who motivate you in your life?
Well, I would say see, if you look by the human theory of motivation, there are basically three things that humans are motivated by: recognition, power, and money. And there's no human being who is totally immune to all these three things. So either we look in terms of recognition, connecting with people, either we look in terms of earning, or we look in terms of having an influence or power on others. I think for me, the motivation fact comes from connecting with people, doing something that makes a difference to others, being in a profession that is deeply meaningful. And even as an administrator, often I have to help out people with hospital admissions and getting medical help and stuff. During COVID, there were several circumstances where I had to stand behind family relatives. I myself got COVID. My wife and daughter got COVID. My wife at that time. We all got COVID. My ex-mother-in-law passed away from COVID. One of my aunties passed away from COVID. So there has always been this check and balance about our role in society. So that's one motivation for me, this ability to do something for people. The other, of course, the monetary part is important. Though, as I've already mentioned, I don't earn a pot of gold, and I don't intend to. I need to have a comfortable life, not necessarily a luxurious life. And the other thing that has motivated me very deeply in the last 5-6 years since my father passed away. I had multiple neuropathic issues. I had problems with the marriage, which ultimately ended in divorce, and I had lost my job in 2017. So that was a crisis moment for me. And we often see that crisis moments give us the best answers. So from that point onwards, I tried to develop a deeper sense of spirituality. And I realized that this is who I am. The spirit is who I am. And based upon this deep sense of spirituality, which is parallel to religion, but not essentially same as religion. Like I'm a very devout, practicing Hindu. Well, I have a appreciation and respect for other religions. So I think this is a sense of spirituality which has sustained me and motivated me throughout, and I hope that will be the case through the rest of my days. I have an interest in yoga and meditation and holistic living, and someday I hope I'll be able to set up an institute or set up some kind of protocols which will help people to realize this. Because what I realize today, people are going out of sync. We are losing sight of ourselves. हम भूल रहे हैं कि हम कौन हैं. हम दूसरों को देख के, external world को देख के जा रहे हैं. I think we need to dig deeper, go deeper into ourselves, find out who we are, and hold on to that idea of self or Atma or spirit or whatever you call it. In different religions, they call it in different names. I think that is, this sense of spirituality is the primary thing that helps me going. And of course, I have a few deeply meaningful relationships which keep me going.
Why today's hospital, nursing home, or any medical institution are so expensive? And nowadays, most of the people think about healthcare insurance. Why?
I'll answer this question in very valid question, very important question as a citizen of India. Health is a fundamental right of citizens. I agree. To answer this question, we have to look at two parts. After independence, if you look at it, our healthcare system was dominated by the public sector. So it was an 80-20 ratio where 80% was public, 20% was private. Today, standing in the 21st century, it is the opposite, where 80-85% is private and the rest is public. Right? And therefore public exposure of people to the private healthcare system is larger, and therefore this perceivement of healthcare expenses higher. Now if we look at why it is expensive, we have to look into the very structure of healthcare itself. Healthcare is a highly skill intensive industry. To give you an example, it will take 15 years of training to have a competent cardiac surgeon. That is 15 years, including 5 years of your youth when you are slogging out your day and night to become a doctor. We have all been through that phase, that rigor. So to be an established doctor, it takes a lot of time. My mom is a doctor, so I know the pain. Similarly, for nurses, for technicians, or for any other people in the healthcare industry, it takes a huge amount of time and quite a bit of expense and quite a bit of investment, if I may use the word, in their profession to reach that level of eminence. So naturally, when we put in that kind of effort, we expect some kind of remuneration. I'm talking in clear terms. And healthcare is a commodity since 1995, when healthcare was brought under the Consumer Protection Act as a commodity, right? Which was vigorously opposed by the Indian Medical Association, giving the reason that healthcare, being a doctor-patient relationship, based on a doctor-patient relationship, cannot be commoditized. Therefore, if today's society is talking of healthcare as expensive, I think it is a natural follow-up of a sequel of an incident which was forced upon us. Healthcare was made a commodity. The government is slowly withdrawing its hand from the healthcare system, leaving it to private players. To give you an example, to set up a hospital, to set up a super specialty hospital in the metro, it will take a minimum of investment. I'm talking of minimum investment of 40 lakhs per bed, which means if you have 100 beds, it is 40 into 100, 4,000 lakhs, that is 40 crores. That is 40 crores of investment which no one is going to give you. The government is not going to support you a penny. On the other hand, they will have schemes like Swasthya Sati or Ayushman Bharat, which I feel are good for the common benefit of citizens. You'll have a huge amount of expenses while setting up a hospital. There is expense on the land, on the building, on machinery, on consumables, and on manpower. Hospitals are the most expensive, if I may use the word industry, because nowadays we talk of healthcare industry, and in 95 the Consumer Protection Act effectively turned this into an industry. So it is not the blame of the fault of the healthcare profession. If we call it an industry, the cost, the input cost ratio is highest in the healthcare industry, and the remuneration the minimum. An MBA healthcare would earn probably around 60 to 75% of what an MBA in any other stream would earn. However, many of us are motivated to work in this field. I see many people coming from the commerce background, coming from the liberal arts background into healthcare administration, because they're at the end they want to be associated with the healthcare field, because it gives them a sense of purpose. So with the higher input cost and the doctor and the government taking its hand away from healthcare has become expensive. Should the citizen have to suffer on account of this? Unfortunately, every year 3% of the Indian population goes below the poverty line on account of medical expenses. That is a tragic and undeniable fact. What is the solution? The only solution is number one, expansion of public healthcare system. In any civilized country, be it China, I'm not talking of only UK, which is a westernized system, or Europe, which is some of the best public healthcare system. I'm talking of our neighbors, China and Sri Lanka, which have got better public healthcare. Why is the government withdrawing its hand from public healthcare? Why is the government forcing the private sector to provide care at their terms and at costs, which is only dictated by the government? Healthcare has a cost to set up. Doctors have a life to live. We have to pay our bills. No one will pay my EMIs. Even if you're a top-ranking cardiac surgeon, no one is going to pay your car EMI, pay for your daughter's or son's education, or pay for your house EMI. You have got to meet your cost after all. If you look at it, the myth of these super rich doctors is nothing but a myth. Most of us live fairly middle-class lives. There are certain superstar doctors who earn a lot, but then that, as I said, that's there in any other profession. So unless there is some kind of sustainable health insurance in this country and the expansion of the public healthcare system, I am a votary of public healthcare. I believe the government should do as I said, any civilized country deserves a good public healthcare system. And unless these two things happen, to some extent the Ayushman Bharat system has taken care of this, but again the Ayushman Bharat mission depends heavily upon the private healthcare ecosystem. We cannot depend upon the private healthcare ecosystem to provide healthcare universally, because private healthcare also has a cost to pay. Hospitals take a bank loan to start. Who will pay the bank? Not the government, not the public. The healthcare entrepreneur or the doctor who sets up the hospital will have to pay his bank loans. No one will come to support us. So I think unless the healthcare insurance expands and unless the public healthcare system expands, this debate about expensive healthcare is going to remain in our country. That we cannot avoid that at all.
What do you think? There is any difference in today's Kolkata or old Kolkata in terms of medical profession or medical management?
Very interesting question actually, because I am 47 years, I have seen almost 5 decades now, so there would be a decadal shift. To put it into perspective, I was born in a small nursing home in Hajra, which probably is not there anymore. It would have been either demolished or turned into some other other building. My mother or my father were definitely born in a government hospital. Several of my cousins in the 3 decades back, I remember one of my cousins being born at Calcutta Medical College Hospital. Today we find that all our relatives go to private healthcare sector, right? So there is this shift from public to private, which is it's not that we don't have hospitals in the public healthcare. It's not that we don't have government hospitals. It's only that people perceive the quality of service in the private healthcare sector to be above the public healthcare sector, because there are better doctors, there are better equipments, the environment is probably better. So there is this shift towards public healthcare to private healthcare, and I would say that the shift that we would have seen from the Kolkata of yesterday and today, as far as medical profession is concerned is inevitably there has been a bit of commercialization. It is expected. When you put the CPA on a profession, you can't expect it to be a charitable service. एक तरफ आप मेडिकल प्रोफेशन पे सीपीए ठोकते हो, दूसरे बोलते हो डॉक्टर्स जाके चैरिटी करेंगे, सेवा करेंगे. That doesn't happen. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either a service or a commodity. The government has chosen to make it a commodity, so be it. It is commercialized. However, as I always say that we need to have a balance between the private and public healthcare sector. Today's doctors who pass out are a bit more, I would say. I think somewhere our communication skills need to be brushed up. Doctors of the yesteryears and our professors, I think, were a bit better at communication. See, one of the major things that one of the things we're taught in the medical profession is that sometimes you may cure a patient, sometimes you may not be able to cure a patient. But it is always important that you listen to the patient. So I think that art of empathetic listening is slightly lacking in some of our doctors. Not only Kolkata, I would say across India or across the world, because doctors are under stress and the profession is under serious threat from different. You find people beating up doctors. You don't find people beating up judges or engineers. You don't find anyone beating up an engineer because a bridge has fallen. You find people beating up doctors because a patient has died despite his best effects, and it happens too often. So I think the doctor-patient relationship has changed. Earlier, doctor was taken as God. Today, doctor is taken as provider. And there has been a gradual change in this and this patient-doctor communication. I think it's important for patients to have a voice. It's important for patients to be informed. But I also think that society needs to look at doctors in a much more empathetic and in a much more understanding way. We burn our youth at the years of our youth. If you've ever been to medical college, you would know what it is like to slog day and night, slog in the hospital wards day and night. My internship days in Calcutta Shishu Mongol used to start at 8 in the morning, end at 8 on the next morning, with probably 2 hours of sleep in between. I've worked for 72 hours at one stretch at times. So that is the kind of stress we go through, and that is, I don't say that give us sympathy because of that, because that's what we chose. That's what we chose to be. But do understand that doctors are not machines. They are not. It's not like it's not like McDonald's. Paisa do or get a product. Something much more intangible. Something that involves trust, communication, and best ethical practices. And I'm happy to say that there are many doctors. There are a lot of doctors, including my mom, who practices humbly in her own chamber. Sometimes even foregoing fees for patients who are poor, looking after patients. So I think there are a lot of doctors in this profession who are really keeping the patient's interests at heart. And while we need to point out the black sheep in our profession, there are black sheep in our profession, and I am against them, as any doctor should be against them. We should also appreciate that overall the medical profession is doing a good job in society, and this was well proven during the corona epidemic. I have worked for hours and hours when people used to have holidays during the corona season. We had to work from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 in the evening with a reduced salary. Our salaries were reduced by 20%, 30%, I haven't counted. So we had no holidays. Unlike most of you who could afford to watch TVs and videos and Netflix during the COVID pandemic, we had no such luxury. Or we had extra. So that is what the medical profession is all about. And we are happy. I'm happy that to whatever extent we could make a difference during the COVID pandemic. So I think society needs to evolve its attitudes towards doctors in a more balanced and nuanced way. And I think it's also for the medical profession to understand the aspirations of society. It is a two-way thing. It's a give and take situation.
Thanks a lot for giving us interview for Filmediography. Thank you.
It was my pleasure to be here.